Today we shall be talking about the basic principles of auditing. Whenever an audit performs the auditing function, he has to abide by certain principles. Presently, there is no specific standard which is called basic principles. There is no such rule book given that these are the principles. But there are certain principles which govern the auditor's professional responsibilities. They are framed in accordance with his responsibilities, and he should definitely abide by these principles whenever he goes to conduct an audit. The compliance with basic principles require the application of auditing procedures and reporting practices appropriate to particular circumstances. So these principles he should obey whenever he goes to a particular client. There are certain fundamental principles which are ethically required as per Code of Ethics read with Essay 200 and Essay 220. So we shall be talking about these principles in detail. The first is integrity, objectivity and independence. Auditor should be straightforward. He should be honest in his work, and sincerity towards his work is very important and a must. His professional approach, the work he is doing in his professional manner, he should be very dedicated to that work and he should be very honest. He has to be fair in all the work he is doing. There should not be any impartiality, or he should not allow any prejudice or bias to override his objectivity. The word objectivity here means whatever work he is doing, he should have the professional approach in his mind, and there should be no partial decisions made on his behalf. No prejudice, he has not to take the side of anybody. He must maintain impartial attitude which both be and appear to be free of interest, which might be regarded, whatever its actual effect, as being incompatible with integrity and objectivity. So his attitude should be impartial towards the work. He has not to take side of any person. His attitude and behavior should be free of interest from anybody. He has no personal interest in his work. It is just the professional approach he is abiding by, and he has to work accordingly. His attitude, his behavior should also appear to be free of interest, and his work should also be free of interest. He has not to take anybody's side. Only and only his integrity of the work and objectivity should be given prime importance. He has to focus on his work. He has not to be dependent on others. His mind should not say, okay, let the other co-auditor do the work. Let the branch auditor only do the remaining stuff and let me have a relaxed attitude. No, he has to be independent. He has to focus, hard work, and he has not to be influenced by others. If the client is asking him to change a little small changes in the audit report, he should not do. He has not to be influenced by anybody. Now the staff, obviously all the work cannot be done by one auditor, so he will be appointing the staff. The staff will do the work, but he should have full faith in himself. He should have full confidence in himself. Whatever the transactions he is checking, he has to see them thoroughly. He cannot blindly believe whatever is written. He is not supposed to sign like this. And his work is not simply come to the client's office and go from the client's office. No. Apart from that, he has to do his duty. Just not only he has to pay the visits that, okay, I am the auditor, I have to pay the visits to the client's office. No, simply come and go will not function. He has to do his duty well. He has not to take bribe from anybody. He is not working on behalf of others. He is not the employee of the client. He is not the staff of the client. He is independent himself to maintain his integrity, dignity, objectivity. He is working for the books of audit. This much he should remember. Next is confidentiality. Now when the auditor is going to see the books of account of some client, so it is a very important matter. Somebody is handling you the internal transactions in your hand, and you should be very responsible for your job, for your work, and you do not have to disclose any item, any transaction to XYZ anybody other than the client. You have to fully respect your work. You have to respect the confidentiality of the information which you acquire during the course of work. You don't have to disclose it to any XYZ third party without specific authority. If the client is telling you that you can please discuss so and so things with my architect or with my friend, only then you can discuss. And otherwise, if there is a legal requirement Sometimes you have to tell the lawyer that this and this is happening. That is a separate issue. If it is a legal forcefulness or there is professional duty to disclose it to a third party, only then the matter can be discussed outside, not otherwise. The client is handling all the information to the auditor, and it is wrong if he passes the same information to anybody. He will come across during the course of work many findings and transactions which cannot be discussed with anybody other than the owner. So don't disclose it to the third party, not even to the staff, to the manager, deputy manager, or the board of directors. No, you cannot tell, you should not tell it to anybody else. Next is the skill and competence. The audit should be performed and the report which is prepared with due professional care by persons who have adequate training, experience and competence. Now, if you are acting as an auditor to a company, you yourself should be highly educated. You should be well equipped with your own training. You should have good experience and competence. You should be yourself skillful. If you are only not confident in your degree, how will you go and perform the audit? It is not possible. You have to be talented enough. You have to work hard during your study. Only then you can show confidence in your work. And you don't have to speak it with the word of mouth. Yes, I am very intelligent. I am very good at work. No, your work will speak for you, and the client will also understand whether you are capable enough or not. So the basic principle is that the auditor, he should be trained, well experienced and competent, because auditing requires special skills and competence which are acquired through combination of general education. You have to be highly educated, complete your CA degree. You should have the knowledge, up-to-date knowledge, which you will obtain through your study, and apart from that you may have to go for some formal courses concluded by qualifying examination recognized for this purpose, and practical experience. You have to have experience in the industry also. Bookish knowledge alone will not be sufficient for you. In addition to that, auditing requires continuing awareness of the developments. You have to go in pitching for so many seminars, and whatever is happening in the world, you should be well aware of it. Only then you will be well equipped with the developments, including the pronouncement of ICAI on accounting and auditing matters, relevant regulations, statutory requirements. So what is latest happening, you should be well aware of it. You have to have experience, good qualified CA. Apart from the auditor, the staff also should have basic knowledge to verify and check the transactions. If the person auditor himself or his staff is not knowing the basic principles of accounting, ledger, P&L, balance sheet, how will they check the books? If you are, you're studying in a university, your lecturer, if he himself doesn't know the subject, how will he teach you? How will he assess your answer sheets? Similarly is the case here. How will the auditor audit the books of account if he is himself and his staff is not well aware of these basic principles? So you have to have proper detailed knowledge of your subject. Only then you will have to show the courage to be a good auditor. Work performed by others. Now, just as I told you that each and every single work auditor cannot do. There will be people, there will be staff who will be doing it for him. But the responsibility is the auditor. He cannot say by the end of it, oh my God, this work was done by somebody else, it's not my responsibility. No, it doesn't happen like that. Even if that work was performed by others, but it is you who are responsible. So you have to check the work if others are doing the work. Ultimately, it is your work. You are just taking a little help by employing your staff. Responsibility is your, name is yours, and you cannot shoo away from your responsibility on saying that I was not present on that day, so my staff did it, so please don't irritate me. No, you have to get irritated if you sign on a wrong document or the report is going wrong. It is only you and you responsible, and it should be clear in your head. Okay, he has to satisfy himself for the work done by the subordinates. Now, if he likes the work of his subordinate, well and good. Otherwise, he has to train them so that his satisfaction, he gets his satisfaction from the work. Otherwise, there is no point of keeping the subordinates. No, if you are not satisfied with the work, or your subordinates are not smart enough to do the things properly, then there is no need of subordinates. My point is that you have to be responsible by the work performed by others. He will definitely delegate the work to his assistants, or he may also sometimes use the work which is performed by other auditors and the experts. But again, responsibility of the financial information is solely of the auditor. He can rely on the work performed by others, but he has to exercise his brain, his knowledge. Okay, with adequate skill and care, he can rely on that work. He cannot blindly accept the work which is done by the co-auditors, or cannot blindly rely on the work which is done by the subordinate staff. If he relies on the work of the branch auditors under Companies Act 2013, the auditor's report should expressively state the fact of such reliance. You have to mention that this work was done by the branch auditor and I am dependent and I am relying on that branch auditor's work, so that in future something goes wrong, so you have the proof to save yourself. But still I say you should always cross check the work. Auditors should carefully direct, supervise and review the work delegated to the assistants. You have to supervise it. If audit staff is going to check and audit staff is appointed by the auditor, the staff will write anything in the notebook. But the responsibility of the work performed by the audit staff is the responsibility of the auditor. Auditor cannot say, I did not check, my staff checked, they ask them, they are responsible. No. Work done by the staff means the work done by the auditor. So goes the same. So he should obtain reasonable assurance that the work performed by the other auditors or his experts is adequate for the purpose. Very careful when you appoint the staff, because they are going to represent you and your name will get spoiled if they do something wrong. So the staff performs, but auditor is responsible. He can make work of the internal auditor or his staff as the base, but then he has to give his independent opinion, and he should be very skillful and very careful in checking that work, and you have to cross check it once you rely on that work. Next is the planning. Planning is a very important concept. I think in every work planning is must. He has to plan his work to enable him to conduct an effective audit efficiently and timely. To complete your work on time, you have to plan it. To complete your work efficiently and nicely, manageably, please plan it. When to start, how to start, who will be the staff members. You have to properly understand the client and the organization, what activities are being carried on in the client's organization, the admin, the account staff of the client, the policies, internal control, very important. How is the internal control being managed in the client's organization? You have to understand it. Determining and programming the nature, timing, extent of the audit procedures to be performed, and how to coordinate the work with others is also a very important point. Success of audit depends on the planning of the audit. How will you plan the audit? Now, proper plan completes half of the work. Well begun is half done. Well properly planned work, half work is done. Plans should be further developed and revised as necessary during the course of audit procedure. While you are conducting the audit procedure and you feel that a little plan is here and there, then you can anytime you can revise the plan and frame a new plan. Next is the documentation. The auditor should document the matters which are important in providing evidence that the audit was carried out well in advance with the basic principles. So without documentation, it will be very difficult for the auditor to conduct the audit. You have to maintain the documents at every stage. He should keep the vouchers, all the documents safely and in order. In case he detects any sort of fraud, how will he disclose it to the client? For what proof he will have? He will have the proof of the documents. So you have to keep them in an orderly position. The tax authorities can ask him, whosoever asks, even the client asks, tax authorities ask, he should have the documents ready to provide. Okay. Next is the audit of evidence. Audit is done through audit evidence. Without evidence, no one can trust the transaction, because you cannot believe what people say by the word of mouth. You need to have the evidence, the vouchers and the documents. They will speak for the work. Only then you will believe that this transaction was done. If there is no voucher, if there is no document, then there is no transaction according to us. So the manipulations, if any, happen in the organization, how will you trace them? You will trace them on the basis of evidence. There will be proper vouchers and documents. Only then you can track each and every transaction. The auditor is supposed to obtain sufficient appropriate evidence through performance of compliance and substantive procedures to enable him to reach reasonable conclusions. So there are two things. You have to obtain the evidence through compliance procedures and through substantive procedures. Now, what is compliance procedures? There are certain tests which are designed to obtain reasonable assurance that the internal control which is carried on in the organization are true and you can be relied on. You have to test the procedure. You have to test the internal control procedure. Test it again and again 2-3 times so that you are well satisfied that whatever internal control measures are taken in the organization are good enough. And the auditor, once these compliance procedures are tested, only then he can rely on those internal control measures, because every organization will be having their own internal control designs, है ना? So somebody is taking this measure of internal control, somebody is taking that measure of internal control. So the auditor has to go in for the compliance procedure tests to assure that these internal control are good enough and he can rely on them easily. Substantive procedures are designed to obtain evidence as to the completeness, validity and accuracy of the data produced by the accounting system. So again, the auditor has to check whatever the accounting people are giving him, the vouchers or the documents, are they all right, are they complete, or they are trying to manipulate the auditor himself, they are trying to hide something from the auditor. So the auditor has to be very skillful, very sharp in compliance procedures to check the internal control measures, and in substantive procedures, so that he just assures himself that all the details which are given by the accounting staff, they are valid, accurate and complete. There is no hidden game going on in the accounting system. This includes the test of details of the transactions and balances, analysis of significant ratios and trends, including the resulting inquiry of unusual fluctuations and items. Okay, clear? Next point is number 8, accounting system and internal control. Now, the auditor has to check the accounting system and internal control whether it is proper or not. And if the accounting control system is not up to the mark, he has to plan accordingly. He should understand the accounting system himself. What is done by the firm? Accounting system is generally done by the management, but the auditor, he should have knowledge of whatever is going on. He has to study and gain and understand the accounting system and internal control which is maintained by the management. See, now the management is responsible for maintaining the proper accounting system, incorporating various internal controls to the extent appropriate to the size and the nature of the business. So every management of the company will definitely make sure that internal control is up to mark, depending upon the size and nature of the business. But the auditor, he should reasonably assure himself that this accounting system is proper, adequate to this organization, and all the accounting information which is need to be recorded has in fact been recorded. They are not hiding anything from me. Internal controls normally contribute to such assurance. So if you go through the internal control and you see that one work is checked by the other work, then you can easily rely that yes, nothing has been hidden from me. Auditor should acquire an understanding of the accounting system, related controls. He has to study, evaluate the operation of these internal controls. How is the internal control functional? Only then he can rely to determine the nature, timing, extent of other audit procedures. When he comes to the conclusion that these internal controls are reliable, his substantive procedures थोड़े कम हो जाएंगे, because उसको तसल्ली हो गई. He knows that all the internal controls are very reliable. If that is not reliable, then his substantive procedures, which I told you in the previous slide, they have to be very, very extensive. Next, audit conclusion and reporting. The auditor, he has to review and assess the conclusions drawn from the audit evidence obtained from his knowledge of the business of the entity on the basis of expression of his opinion on financial information. So he will go through all the financial information, internal control, everything he has checked. After doing all the audit, he has to come to a conclusion. The review and assessment involves forming an overall conclusion whether the financial information has been prepared using acceptable accounting policies which have been consistently applied. At every point you are following the accounting information in the proper guidelines. Financial information complies with relevant regulations and statutory requirements. Also, if there is adequate disclosure of all material matters relevant to the proper presentation of the financial information. So he has to give his report, he has to prepare on the basis of his audit conclusion. Whatever he considers, he has to write it independently without the fear of the client or without the fear of any co-auditor. He has to give independent opinion. To make an audit report is an art. It is not that you will be writing lengthy reports like Ramayana, Mahabharata. No, it's not an epic. You don't have to fill up the pages. You have to have crisp language, proper knowledge with crisp language. You have to write in gun points. Whatever you want to mention, please mention it clearly without hesitation. There should be documents. You have to prepare this audit report skillfully, tactfully, and in a concise manner. It should be up to the mark and it should be proper. Don't hide any facts. Don't fear anybody. There should be no hesitation. In fact, more and more skill and expertise is required to give a very fair audit report. Now, audit conclusion and reporting. The audit report should have a clear written opinion on the financial information. When a qualified opinion, adverse opinion, or disclaimer of opinion is to be given. If you want to write something extra which you don't believe it to be true, or you want to mention any type of fraud or something, you should state clearly with proper reasons and documents and evidence. So here I come to the end of the article. I hope I have made things very clear to you. In case any doubts, please ask me in the comment section. Please like my channel. Please subscribe my channel. Thank you for watching. Stay safe. Stay blessed.